Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're going to be installing the catch can onto a turbo vehicle and explaining why it's important to install one when you are either chasing a lot of power or even just wanting to increase the life of your turbocharged vehicle. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so what's the point of a catch can? So in any vehicle, there's a lot of pressures that happen within the engine, as we all know, and there is a lot of gases and oil vapors and that sort of thing that get thrown around the engine, and basically them sort of vapors and gases can get into components and places and gum them up. So this is the crankcase breather, and as you can see, it's got this browny orangey tinge to it. Now basically all that is oil vapor. So oil vapor is making that a bit sticky, slimy, and has caused it to change color. Now that is because of oil vapor. So them vapors typically go from there around, following that, and then back into the intake manifold. Now that is great for the environment, but not so great for your motor. Now just by touching that just then, I now have sticky fingers. Now you can imagine that same stickiness going into your car's engine over and over again, and just have a think about what that is doing to your internals. Obviously not good. So to combat this, we fit a catch can. Very popular in diesel cars, turbocharged cars, but can be fitted to any car because every car produces them same vapors. Obviously some more so than others, and obviously other cars have different systems. So currently there's a hose that runs around the back and into the intake for the turbo. Today we're going to fit all the lines up to this catch can. Now every catch can is different. You can get some that have a filter on the top which help to vent the catch can. Some have multiple outlets. This one just has an inlet and an outlet. That you can get ones that have two inlets, two outlets, which you are probably better off getting for a Falcon since it has two breathers on it, two ventilation sources, one here and obviously one here. Today we're not going to be touching this one, we're only going to be touching this one. Alright, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is find a convenient spot to mount up your catch can. For me, the most convenient spot is over here because I can route that line up and around, in and then out and back into my intake. There's also two holes from factory that just sit right there. You can use them two holes to aid in fitting up your catch can. I had to drill one hole, but I could use the other one. I would show you that process, although it's a bit fiddly with these bolts. So for now we're going to leave it, but yeah, you get the gist. You can mount them, in more of a discreet spot where they can't be seen, because police would probably frown upon you for having a catch can. So obviously your discretion whether or not you fit one. Just for the fact that it makes your car less environmentally friendly, because it's obviously not burning them vapors, it's catching them in a can, hence the name catch can, which you have to empty every so often, because the oil vapors will build up and revert back into oil, and you will have the residual oil left over in the can. Now this one is from Johnny Teague. there's plenty of brands out there, you know, just generic eBay ones, and obviously more brand name ones as well. So depending on your application, depends on the one you'll get. So basically, pretty easy process. We're going to take this off here, fit up the new fittings, run the new lines, and then plumb it all up. Pretty easy process, so let's get into it. Alright, so first of all, going to get the flat tip screwdriver, just undo the hose clamp. Take that off. And just pull your hose, that's like this, and then for me it's just a case of undoing another hose clamp down the bottom here. When it comes to rerouting the new line, I have to sort of figure out how I'm going to plumb it all back up, but that's the joys of this sort of thing. Alright, so once you get your hose off there, simple couple of hose clamps off. Now with the FG Falcon, they did go to, I think it's a better idea, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but they've got these star-shaped nuts, Torx nuts, holding the coil cover down, so handy to have like a rotary tool or something, as in something that's like battery operated or something like that to help you undo these. So I'm going to get the drill with the Torx bit and take them off, and that's just so that we can take this out. Obviously you have to remove the breather at the rear, as well as your oil cap, to actually fully take the cover off. For them rear ones I'll have to actually use a screwdriver, otherwise I will round them ones off and that won't be good. Alright, once you've got your coil cover off, obviously put your oil cap back on and the rear breather back on. You get to this little bit, just need a pair of pliers, and yeah, obviously just take that off. Pretty self-explanatory, and once you've done that, we'll move on to the next step. Alright, yours might be, if it's never ever come off before, which this one never ever has, obviously, it might be a little bit stuck. Just give it a rotate and it'll break the paint, and it'll come off. Obviously doesn't really matter, and was actually probably a good thing, since we're going to be putting this fitting on. These can be notoriously hard to get on, especially the ones from Aeroflow. I've heard that they're really tight, and people have sanded back the paint anyway just to get them on, so yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that legit does not want to go on there. Alright, so as known, that's actually pretty tight, so I'm going to have to give that a bit of a sand, and yeah, just see if we can get the fitting to actually fit on there properly. So yeah, bear with me. Alright, so just having a little bit of trouble getting that fitting on there, just because the diameters are slightly off by a couple of mil. So a good trick is to put the fitting in the freezer, let it contract, and then chuck the fitting on, and yeah, basically good luck. Otherwise you can drill that out, but that obviously means taking the head off, which a lot of people don't want to do, and I don't want to do that, just because I don't really have the tools to do it, so I don't want to do that. Anyway, we'll do the outlet from the catch can now, so simply just running from there, and then into there, so pretty easy. So let's do that. Alright, so we've got the intake line all set up. I've decided to route it like this, just because you got to think, if it's dangling down here over the hot side of the engine, obviously the turbo's just there, a lot of heat over this side, potential for this to melt and cause a fire, which I won't name names, but I'm sure some of you out there will understand the reference that I'm chucking out there. Some of you will probably watch his YouTube videos and understand what I mean, but yes, anyway, just something to consider when you're routing your lines. Obviously that one's going to go over the engine, although use cable ties to keep it out of the way. Another thing, if you forget or don't know how to route one of these up, pretty easy principle to remember. If you think about your fuel system, fuel obviously comes from fuel tank to fuel filter, through the lines to injectors. So think of this as your fuel tank. The engine oil vapors go through the engine, out the breather, into catch can, goes through the filter, filters through the catch can, through the outlet, and then filtering fresh air or cleaner air into your intake, which won't gum up turbo, intercooler piping, and all that sort of thing, throttle body included. So that's a pretty easy way to remember in case you get stuck. Alright, so after a little bit of faffing about, I managed to finally manipulate that back onto where it needs to go. Definitely, if you're in a real pickle, the freezer's definitely helped. It made a start anyway. So that's finally on there now. Obviously, if you're going to manipulate it with a rotary tool like a Dremel, make sure you clean it properly, dunk it in some oil, clean it with parts cleaner, put it in a parts washer, do something to get all them bits of metal out of it. So you're obviously not getting metal inside your engine, which isn't good. So once that is back in place, you're right now to chuck your coil cover back on, and then we'll move on to the next step. If you don't own a rotary tool, I highly suggest you get one, but if you do, that's great, and as you probably are well aware, they come in handy. With these airflow fittings, they're rather large, obviously around the part where you would put a spanner or a socket to tighten them up. So I had to do a little bit of dremeling on the coil cover just to get it to fit around that. So just a little heads up, if you go to fit one of these and use the airflow fittings, just to be careful with that, and just know you're going to have to do a little bit of internal Dremel work just to get that fitting to fit through. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Alright, so next off, you're going to want to measure just how long you need your hose to be. So I got a bit excited and accidentally put both the fittings on both ends, but it's no big deal. So if you measure it up, you see you need probably about that much. Give yourself a little bit extra, just in case. And then what I like to do is just leave my thumb there, get a bit of tape, wrap it around so you know where your mark is, and then just simply cut it. So yeah, that's going to be all about that I need. About that much, so I'll grab the tape, tape it up, cut it. One thing to just be obviously wary of, if you're going to use other fittings, or if your kit doesn't supply any hose, make sure that it's oil rated hose, and obviously check what PSI it runs at, because obviously it's quite a lot of pressure running through this system. And obviously this is flame resistant as well, so that's good in case something goes wrong and you know, maybe a fire or something happens. At least you know that line is flame resistant. So yeah, good to know that it can withstand some heat, which obviously there is a lot of under the engine bay. Another thing with your fittings, obviously that sits out pretty high. So just be careful of your clearances with your bonnet, but I've just tested and we're all good. So just one thing to keep in mind. Obviously when you're cutting hose, make sure that you've got a nice sharp Stanley knife You can get proper hose cutting pliers, whatnot, but if this is all you have, make sure it's nice and sharp and not blunt. If you have the one with the snappable blades, you know, snap a fresh blade, just so you get a nice clean cut. Obviously inspect where you've cut, wipe away any excess rubber, and you're good to chuck it on. Alright, so this is it all fitted up. Obviously it comes from there up through the hose. I tucked it up behind the brake master cylinder, or the reservoir, sorry, just to keep it out of the way. And yeah, fits perfectly. And then obviously goes into the top of the catch can, goes through the filter, out the side, and then through this hose, and then into the intake. So yeah, pretty simple install, very easy when you've got the right tools. Obviously check your fittings if you're going to be doing it, check your hoses, make sure you've got all the parts that you need, and obviously if you're not sure, take to a person who knows, and get them to fit it, because the last thing you want to do is blow your car up. Also, when you fit up a catch can, you're going to want to check, like I'd say the first week, first 2 weeks, just to check how much oil you do collect, and then it'll give you sort of an idea of the time frame you're going to have to look at to be collecting the oil from the catch can. You obviously don't want to fill that up, because that can obviously cause problems that you don't need. So yeah, just keep an eye on it, especially because it's just been fitted up. It's something that you're going to want to check up on, just to make sure that everything is going well and as it should be. So anyway, that's the video for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed, hope you've learned something. Make sure if you're new, comment, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you at the next video.